Chosen one. Something shifted the moment you arrived here. Not in the room around you, not in anything you can point to or explain. But inside, in that quiet center where you have learned to pay attention, something moved. You feel it right now, don't you? A pressure in your chest that is not pain, but weight. The kind of weight that arrives when something significant is close. You did not find this moment randomly. You were guided here. And the fact that you stayed, that you did not scroll away, tells me that part of you already knows this is not ordinary. Your spirit recognizes what your mind is still catching up to. This is not an accident. This is a divine appointment. There are moments in a life that function like doorways. Most people walk past them without realizing what they were. They mistake sacred interruptions for coincidence and carry the cost of that misreading for years. But you are not most people. You have been trained by your own seasons of pain and patience to recognize when heaven is speaking in a frequency the world cannot broadcast. This is one of those moments. What is unfolding around your life right now? The tension you feel, the quiet that has settled over certain areas, the strange sense that something is standing just behind the next corner is not imagination. As it is written in Ecclesiastes 3:1, there is a time for every matter under heaven. Not a vague time, a specific, appointed, locked-in moment when what has been sealed by God begins to move. You are living inside that moment right now. Stay with this, because what is coming for you is not small. Before we go further, if something in these opening words already stirred something in you, if your chest tightened, if you felt a recognition you cannot fully explain yet, I want to pause and acknowledge something. This work takes time, prayer, and a deep commitment to showing up for people like you. People standing at the edge of something they cannot yet name but can already feel. If this channel has ever met you in a moment when nothing else did, there is a link in the description below and pinned in the first comment where you can support this work by buying a coffee. It is a small act, but when you choose to pour back into something that has poured into you, you are practicing the very principle heaven is preparing to release into your own life. The law of reciprocal generosity. What you give with an open hand creates room for what God has sealed to land. If you feel led, go there now. Every offering is honored and seen. Now let us continue. Chosen one, I know what the long wait feels like. Not the short kind, where you know roughly when something will arrive. The other kind, the kind that begins to fold in on itself, where you stop tracking days because tracking them makes it worse. Where prayer starts to feel like speaking into a room you are not sure anyone is in. You have sat in that room. Some of you have lived there for years. In that room, a very specific kind of doubt grows. Not loudly. Through the side door of exhaustion, questions like, was any of this real? Did I misread the signs? Have I been waiting for something that was never actually promised to me? Those questions are not weakness. They are the natural result of carrying something heavy in a silence that offers no updates. But here is what you must understand. The silence was not absence. The delay was not denial. A seed placed in the ground is completely surrounded by darkness. For a period it did not choose and cannot control. Nothing appears to be happening. And yet inside that sealed, pressured environment, transformation is constant. The seed is not waiting to become something. It is already in the process of becoming it. Chosen one. That is what your waiting season has been doing to you. The silence that felt like abandonment was actually the exact condition required for your roots to go deep enough to hold what is coming. Shallow roots cannot support what heaven has prepared for you. So heaven gave you depth first. Think about the version of you that existed at the beginning of this waiting period. Think about what you wanted then and why. If what you were waiting for had arrived immediately, what would you have done with it? Some of you would have handed it to the wrong person to earn love. Some of you would have worn it as armor against the people who doubted you, turning a blessing into a weapon. God saw all of that. Not with judgment, with love. The kind a parent has when a child reaches for something they are not yet ready for and gently redirects them without explanation. The explanation is only available in hindsight, and now you are close enough to the other side to begin seeing it. What you went through was not God withholding from you. It was God making sure that what He was bringing could not be damaged by who you were still becoming. That is not a criticism. That is a crown. Chosen one. While you were in the ground, voices spoke to you. Not all from outside. Some of the loudest came from inside, from old wounds that had not fully healed, from agreements you made with disappointment. In moments you do not clearly remember, you watched others receive what you were still waiting for. Their relationships formed. Their finances shifted. Their doors opened while yours stayed shut. And you were left holding prayers that had not yet turned into answers, trying to smile through something that genuinely hurt. That hurt was real. You felt overlooked, forgotten. There were nights when obedience felt not just unrewarded but punished, when the people who abandoned their values appeared to prosper, while the ones who held the line barely held themselves together. And darkness used those nights to whisper its most persistent lie, that the promises spoken over your life were not real, that something in you, some flaw too stubborn to remove, had made you ineligible for the fullness of what God could give. Chosen one, hear me without softness. That was a lie then, and it is a lie now. And the proof is standing in front of you in this very moment. Because if darkness had been right, you would not still be here. You would not still have a pulse of expectation somewhere under all that exhaustion. You would not still feel that quiet insistence that the story is not over. That insistence is the voice of the Spirit in you that never agreed with the verdict darkness tried to hand down. Even on your worst nights, something in you refused to close the file. That refusal, small, persistent, stubborn, is itself evidence that heaven never stopped working in you. What has been sealed cannot be intercepted. It does not require the approval of the people who doubted you. It moves by the authority of the one who gave it, and that authority answers to nothing and no one but itself. Anointed one, let me speak plainly. Your spirit does not need more poetry. It needs precision. What is coming for you is not simply a financial shift, though God can and does move in the area of provision. Not simply a relational breakthrough, though restoration and new connection are real. Not simply an open door, though doors are opening. All of those can be expressions of it, but none of them are the core of it. The core is this: a fundamental realignment between who you have been told you are and who heaven has always known you to be. For most of your life there has been a gap between those two things. On one side, the identity handed to you by difficult experiences, by relationships that diminished rather than elevated you. On the other side, the identity heaven assigned before you were born, deeper than your memories, more permanent than your mistakes. The surprise God is releasing is a closing of that gap. And when it closes, everything external shifts because everything internal has already shifted. The same opportunities look different because you see them with different eyes. The same gifts present in you but muted by self-doubt begin to speak with the authority they were always meant to carry. This is the documented pattern of every person in Scripture who went through the kind of process you have been in. Joseph did not step into his destiny the moment his circumstances improved. He stepped into it the moment who he had become was ready to hold it. You are in that lineage, and the surprise that is coming is not despite the length of your formation. It is because of it. Chosen one. Let me pause here for a moment. We are going deeper together, and every word in this message was crafted with you specifically in mind. Not a general audience. You, the person carrying exactly what you are carrying right now. If this message has met you somewhere real today, I want to invite you to do something that carries more weight than it might appear. There is a link in the description below and pinned in the first comment where you can support this work by buying a coffee. It does not have to be much. The size of the gift is not the point. The heart behind it is, because when you pour into something that has poured into you, you are practicing the same spiritual principle that is about to activate in your own life. Faithful stewardship leads to greater release. Heaven takes notice of what you do with moments of genuine gratitude. So if you feel led, go to that link now. Every act of generosity, no matter how quiet, is seen and honored. Now let us keep going, because what comes next is where everything changes. Chosen one, I need to speak to something you may not have named out loud yet. Even as you have been listening, even as something in you has been responding and saying yes, there is another voice running underneath it all. Quieter than your excitement, older than your hope. The part of you that has been disappointed before, watching this moment with its arms crossed. It is not your enemy, that part is a protector. It learned its posture during real seasons of real pain, when trust led to real loss. It cannot distinguish between a genuine divine moment and the kind of false promise that hurt you before. And so it treats everything with the same suspicion. But here is the tension it cannot resolve. At some point, the protection becomes the prison. At some point, the wall built to keep out pain begins to keep out everything else too, including the very breakthrough you have been asking heaven to release. Surrender is not weakness. Surrender, the kind heaven invites, is not giving up. It is giving over. The conscious decision to release the management of your story to the one who wrote it, who knows how it ends. And here is what makes this moment different from the moments when that felt impossible. You are not the same person you were then. Something changed in you during this season that makes surrender less terrifying. Not because the stakes are lower, because your grip is looser, because you have lived long enough inside your own strength to know its limits. And that honest, humbling knowledge is the exact soil where real faith grows. One internal, yes, one quiet agreement with what the Spirit is already saying inside you. That is all it takes to cross from one side of this threshold to the other. You are closer to that yes than you realize, anointed one. You have probably asked this question more than once, maybe even today. Why now? If this breakthrough was always coming, why this season and not an earlier one? The answer, because you have stopped needing this blessing to prove something. In earlier seasons, what you were waiting for was tangled up with your sense of worth. You needed it to arrive partly because you believed in the promise, but also partly because its arrival would have served as evidence to yourself and to the people who doubted you, that you were not what the hard seasons had suggested. That need would have distorted the gift. It would have turned provision into validation, turned heaven's assignment into a trophy. Now something has shifted, subtle enough that you may not have noticed it consciously. The desperation has become something quieter and steadier, a knowing that sits in a different place in your body than urgency does, a peace that makes room for the promise without being destroyed by its absence. That shift from proving to trusting is the signal heaven was waiting for, because only a person who no longer needs a gift to define them can actually carry it without being consumed by it. And this blessing is not just for you. Heaven never sends gifts that terminate at the recipient. What is being released into your life is designed to move through you, into rooms you have not yet entered, into people currently in the same season you are living now, who will need to see what your testimony looks like before they can believe their own breakthrough is real. You have been formed, and heaven is ready to use everything the formation produced. Chosen one, I want to name something heaven has been quietly building in you during this entire season. Something harder to describe than a breakthrough and less dramatic than a miracle. But possibly the most important thing you are carrying into what comes next. Capacity, not talent, not opportunity. Capacity, the inner infrastructure that determines how much a person can carry, how far they can go, how much pressure they can sustain without fracturing. Sudden wealth can collapse a person who has not developed a settled relationship with their own worth. Sudden influence can corrupt a person who has not been genuinely humbled by the weight of other people's lives. Heaven knows this. So heaven built your capacity before releasing the blessing, even though that sequence was painful to live through. Think about what you developed in the quiet. The ability to remain faithful when no one is watching, to hold peace in circumstances that have no earthly reason to be peaceful, to speak with gentleness when anger would have been justified, to stay when leaving would have been easier, to return to prayer when prayer had not recently produced anything visible. These are the rarest qualities on earth, and the most necessary for the kind of life heaven is now opening in front of you. You did not grow them by trying. You grew them because you were pushed to the place where they were your only option. And what is formed by fire is kept by something harder than wood. The capacity this season produced is the exact capacity that what is coming requires. This is not coincidence. This is precision. Heaven does not waste formation. You are more prepared than you feel. More prepared than your history would allow you to believe. More prepared than the version of you who entered this long season could have imagined becoming. Anointed one. There is a quality to the air around your life right now that is difficult to name in ordinary language. It is the quality that surrounds a threshold. Things feel simultaneously heavier and lighter. A tension that is not quite anxiety and not quite excitement, but carries elements of both. A stillness under the surface that is not emptiness. It is the specific stillness that precedes movement. The kind a field has in the hours before a harvest begins. Full, expectant, ready. The promise that has been kept for you, held in trust by a God who does not revise, rescind, or forget, has moved into the present tense. Not fully visible yet, but no longer distant. It has entered your atmosphere, your spirit, made by the same God who made the promise, recognizes what is drawing near. What this moment requires of you is not great effort, not a perfectly worded prayer delivered with enough emotional force to move heaven. Heaven is not moved by volume. Heaven is moved by posture, and the posture required right now is the simplest and most costly one of all. Openness. Stay open, even though you have been disappointed before. Even though the timeline has not matched your expectations, what is coming cannot enter through a closed door. Not because it lacks the power, but because God designed it to come through a door you hold open by choice. Chosen one. This is where it lands, not at the end of more waiting, not after another round of proving. Here, now, in this specific, appointed moment, the promise is not approaching. It has arrived. The same God who carried you through the valley of unanswered prayers is standing at the edge of your morning, declaring that the language of delay has run out. What was sealed in the councils of heaven before your first difficult day has been released into your present. You are not entering a season of more preparation. You are entering a season of fulfillment. As it is written in Isaiah 60:1, "Arise and shine, for your light has come." Not will come, has come, the tense is present. The declaration is now. Rise into this, not cautiously, not with one foot still in the old season, with both feet. With the quiet confidence of someone formed by fire, kept by grace, standing at the exact threshold set for them before the foundations of the earth were laid. This is your moment, not a rehearsal, the real thing. Heaven is saying with unmistakable clarity, "Well done, faithful one. What was held is now given. What was guarded is now released. The surprise you sensed but could not name is here, and it fits you, and it was always yours. Walk forward, anointed one." As we close, I want to leave you with something you can return to, something true enough to carry weight when the noise of an ordinary day tries to crowd out what you received here. You are chosen, not as a consolation prize for a harder life, but as an assignment, a deliberate and irreversible decision made before you ever breathed your first breath. That choosing was not contingent on your performance, not revoked by your failures, not eroded by the years you spent wondering if you had been forgotten. It stood through all of it. It is standing now. You are anointed, not because you have arrived at some plateau of spiritual perfection, but because the oil of heaven was placed on you for a purpose that extends beyond your comfort, beyond your story, beyond this season. For the people whose lives intersect with yours, whose breakthroughs are somehow tangled up with yours, who need to see what it looks like when someone who went through what you went through comes out the other side carrying something real, and you are ready, more ready than you feel, more ready than your past would allow you to believe. May the favor of God surround your steps in this new chapter. May His wisdom lead you into every room prepared for you. May His peace settle into the places where anxiety used to live. May His presence be the atmosphere you carry, the quiet evidence that something real happened to a real person and produced something the world cannot argue with. Chosen one, the surprise is here. Heaven has released it. Your job now is simply to receive it and to walk forward in the fullness of who you have become. If this message met you somewhere real today, if something in it touched a part of your story you have not been able to put into words, I want to invite you to do two things. First, leave something in the comments, not just for the algorithm, though that matters too, because there is something powerful about putting your agreement into words. When you type "I receive this" or "This is my season," or even just "Here," you are declaring your position, aligning your words with what the Spirit is already doing inside you. And heaven honors declarations made in faith. Second, make sure you are subscribed with notifications turned on. What we walked through today is a beginning, a threshold crossed, and what follows will build on this foundation. The next message is already being prepared for you. You do not want to miss it. If you are still here, having stayed through to this very last word, that itself is significant. Something kept you present all the way to the end. Trust that. It is the same instinct that brought you here. And whenever you feel moved to pour something back into this work, the link is in the description and pinned in the first comment. Every act of quiet generosity is seen, and what you sow into ground that bears fruit tends to return to you multiplied. Chosen one, go in peace, rise in purpose, and walk in the fullness of the surprise heaven has already released over your life.